Federal government have said it will be calling in Gumi over for questioning over some of his comment on kidnapping. Good morning and welcome to the Dailies, where we keep you updated with all that's happening from the Nigerian newspaper. I am Sarah Elisha and I'll be doing the program alongside Rachel Tansey. Good morning. Good morning, Sarah. All right. Remember, we're live on Facebook and on YouTube, so you can join us via there. Drop your comment, your views, and your contribution on any of the story we will be looking at this morning. And we shall get straight into the paper, starting with the Punch newspaper.
On the paper, the big story: Binance chief, federal government contacts Interpol, soldiers held over detainees escape. Fleeing crypto guru holds British Kenyan nationalities, escape via Middle East airliner. This is coming from the NSA office. Escape shocks security agencies, detained soldier risks disciplinary action, Binance supports probe. Details can be found on page 2. Federal government deducts 415 billion naira state allocations for debt servicing. CBN direct BDCs to sell dollar at 1,269 naira. Federal government threatens Gumi with arrest, condemns reckless statements. Details can be found on page 20. Ondo farmers protest alleged farmlands takeover by Chinese firm. You can find details on page 8. Igboho Gani Adams on warpath over assassination allegation. Kaduna host freed pupils, 28 kidnapped in fresh attack. Nigerians may spend over 725 billion naira on 2024 Hajj. You can find details on page 9, and that's all the news on the Punch newspaper.
On Vanguard newspaper, federal, here we are having CBN slashes the BDC exchange rate to 1,270 to a dollar. We will record that gradually the naira is beginning to appreciate, and the CBN say they will be selling it at about 1,260 and then at 15 rather. So they are, the BDCs are not supposed to increase any talking about their own interest more than 15%. So you can look more for those who are into that, and the BDCs are only for those who need the money essentially. So some of the BDCs will be giving $10,000, and then you are only meant to give those who are actually in need of it. And so I think for those who really want to know more about that story, it's very important that they look into that. And I'm happy that the CBN is trying to regulate it, because we've seen that there was no any regulation whatsoever, and that was why we're seeing that dollars was everywhere and then our naira kept depreciating. So now that we're saying that, I mean, the dollar is to a naira is about 1,279. Gradually, just like we said, we're looking forward to seeing that even 1,000 naira, 800 naira, I think it will be bad, but we'll keep our fingers crossed and we hope that it will get to that amount.
Eventually sell it, because that should be the hope of all Nigerians. Like the fact that now, because there have already been other mechanisms that the central bank put in place for bureau de change operatives, even before now, that they are selling directly to them, because at some point the CBN was no longer transacting with them. Since 2022 it was suspended, and then now they are back to selling directly to them, and they already gave how much more the BDC operatives can put on what they are selling back to people. And then there are also directives on what you can, just as you said, is for businesses precisely to have access to it. Even if you are on a business travel allowance now, the Central Bank of Nigeria is saying no, that allowance goes directly into your account, meaning you don't even have any business with BDCs, for example. This is majorly for businesses, because we saw how the scarcity in the past affected businesses, and the reason we were having inflation going as high as it is now. So yes, these measures are very important, and it's good. We can't help but give thumbs up to Cardoso, because as it is now, it looks like he knows what he's doing, and he is going full force and putting in all the things that are in place. I am looking forward to one of the things that should be changed, of course, is the floating of the currency. I still don't believe it's good for us. It is just only how long these measures can hold the naira. But if the Central Bank of Nigeria can go back to having control to the exchange rate and the value of the currency, we will be able to sustain it. But if we are still leaving our currency for importers and exporters to determine, then this is not really going to be sustainable for a very long period of time, because we saw how it was, but there was some control when the CBN was in charge. So I'm just also looking forward to the reversal of the floating of the currency eventually.
I think this is what every Nigerian is waiting for. I mean, the reversal of the floating, and then with all of this crashing, we're seeing that very soon even the prices of the PMS in the market will drastically drop. So we are hoping that it will actually be effective very soon. Still on the Vanguard newspaper, we are having Gumi squeezed over comments on kidnapping. More detail found on page 13. We also here we are having Faye, Senegal's opposition candidate wins the presidency, and we remember that Senegal had their election on Sunday. So here we're seeing that the results are out, and here we're seeing the winner. You can read more detail on that scene on page 16. How Nigeria saved 300 billion naira on second Niger Bridge bypass design, coming from the Minister of Works, Mahi. You can find detail on page 11. NGE expresses concern over growing insecurity, commend Governor Mba's revolutionary projects in Enugu State. You can find more on page 8 as well. Now here we're having the big story. NSA launches global manhunt as Benin's official fleet custody, seeks support of international community, and Nigerians say he escaped from lawful custody, arrest security personnel that were in charge of keeping him in custody. And then here also we want safety of our officers, resolution of issues with Nigeria. You can find more detail of that on page 5. Here is a picture story of the freed Kuraga school children. Those children we recall seeing on the paper yesterday looking so dirty and tattered. Here we're seeing them looking more organized, looking clean after the release. So you can read more of that story inside the paper. Now let's take a look at what's happening in Delta State. Okwama killing. Let displaced villagers return home. Niger Delta leaders beg Tinubu. And I hope that the president will say something about that, because innocent people are really suffering as a result of these things that are happening. There are more detail found on page 26. Court acquit 3 NSAS protesters. Amnesty International demand release of others. More detail found on page 10. Labour Party convention to go ahead amid Abure and the NLC fight. More detail found on page 8. Finadi eyes back-to-back wins as the Super Eagles face Mali. You can find that story of the sport on page 30. Also, we have another column for Dakuku, which you can see on the front page of the paper, and that's all on Vanguard newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, the big story: Knox trail escape of Binance executive from detention. He fled Nigeria with smuggled passports coming from the NSA office as federal government files tax evasion charges against Binance. You can find details on page 2. Again, El-Rufai meets SDP, APC, PDP stakeholders in Abuja. Shehu Gabam, Folarin, Abubakar Gada, Akinlabi, others in attendance. On Edo, CJ constitutes panel to probe deputy governor. 34-year-old Nigerian U.S. sailor Aribesola falls off warship in Red Sea and dies. Senegalese election, 44-year-old Faye set to become Africa's youngest president. FEC approves construction of 28 roads, bridges worth 1.267 trillion naira. Air Force knocks out terrorist enclaves near Lake Chad. NGE expresses concern over growing insecurity across Nigeria, wants military to speak out on abduction of editor. Bauchi stampede, 3 more women die. No ransom paid for Kaduna school children released. This is a statement from federal government, says Gumi not above the law. CBN moves to crash FX rate, sells $10,000 to each BDC at 1,251 naira. You can find details on page 6, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On New Telegraph newspaper, coming from the CBN, external reserve resumed gradual decline from $34.45 billion, sell $10,000 to each BDCs as Naira firms up. More detail found in the paper. And on the issue of the PMS, NNPC Limited park with marketers crashes XD depot prices. More detail on page 8. Still on the paper, Sharia Council, Nigeria's participation in 2024 had shaky. Custom Board seeks security agency collaboration to curb trans-border crimes. Edo Chief Justice constitutes another 7-member panel to probe allegation against Shaibu, the issue in Edo State. And on 2026, crisis in Ekiti, PDP as chief tied trade wars over ambition. The big story, Kaduna school children, 1 teacher died, 6 people hospitalized, says the GOC. Asani received 131 pupils, that's the governor of Kaduna State. Abducted school children not ransom coming from the federal government. Tinubu ordered security agents to halt kidnapping. ACF calls for proactive measures. And on the kidnapping, federal government invites Gumi for questioning, says he's not above the law. More detail found on page 2, 4, and 29. And a number of people have been saying, I mean, this is something a number of people have said, I mean, since from the Buhari regime, the fact that this Gumi needs to be called in. He needs to be questioned because there are certain comments he has been saying over the years and it didn't really sit well with a number of, Nigerians, and people feel he should be questioned. Sometimes he talks as if he is above the law. And here we're saying that the federal government have taken it to actually call him in for questioning. So we hope that with this questioning, we begin to see some sanity, certain things that shouldn't be said by certain people, regardless of whether you're a clerk or whatever you are in the religious body. Something needs to be done so that we can have law and order in the country. So let's just keep our fingers crossed and see how this whole questioning will eventually turn out to be. And we hope that the federal government will get the answers they are wanting, and then possibly we'll be able to see a more organized way of doing things without we having people interfering and trying to take, the law into their hands and saying certain things as if they are above the law.
As far as I'm concerned, Sele, they've allowed Sheikh Gumi for too long to just keep talking and blabbing and just having his way. And they've let him put himself in a position of becoming an intermediary. And you wonder for who? He keeps advocating, insisting on dialoguing with terrorists and all of that, and you wonder why. And I wonder why that alone is not even being questioned in the first place. If you are insisting on dialoguing with the terrorists, on which side are you? Because the last time I checked, you are not employed either by the defense headquarters. You're not with the DSS, you're not with the army, you're not with the police. So who are you for? Because how dialogue happens is that the terrorist group sends their representative who does the dialogue, and then the federal government or the agency in charge also have their representative who is under them dialoguing. So when you keep insisting to dialogue, on whose side are you? You're either a terrorist because you're obviously not employed by one of the federal government security agencies, for example. So for me, I believe that this man in particular have been led for quite a very long time to have a voice, a voice that is destructive in so many ways, in a lot of ways, just giving that platform for him to be in the center, a middleman that is not even needed in the first place. So it's about time. It has been long overdue, and now is a good time to do it. And I just hope that eventually we will see true, grilling, quizzing, investigation. What do you know that we don't know? You should let it out, and he shouldn't be allowed until he spilled the beans. Like, let whatever you know, just put it out there. That's what I'm looking for when it comes to Gumi, and enough of his voice out there regarding terrorism, dialoguing, kidnapping, ransom, and all of that.
You know, Rachel, when Mamu was arrested last year, this was the same thing people were saying. I mean, Mamu works under Gumi. So why was Gumi not calling for questioning? Why are we only having the name of Mamu coming up as one of the people that are actually financing terrorism in the country? So just like you said, we just hope that whatever drill will be done here should be done properly so that we can actually take out the answers or actually have some answers to certain things that are happening. Still on New Telegraph newspaper, here we are having NGE worries over growing insecurity, urges military to speak out on editor's abduction, data found on page 2. NCC drag MTN and 4 others to court over copyright infringement. You can find that on page 2. Court discharges 3 hashtag answers detainees in Lagos. And on ONSA, how Benin's executive escaped from custody. Our employee safety paramount, says firm. Federal government files tax evasion charges against copy. Federal government sets up infrastructure development fund to bridge gaps as the FEC approves 1.26 trillion naira for roads, bridges. OK's 15 billion loan from Japan. You can find more detail of that on page 4. Downside, we have a story on page 26 that I think it's important that we read and also get more knowledge on that, and that's all the New Telegraph newspaper.
On leadership, Hajj 2024, 46,000 intending pilgrims yet to make full payment. Opposition's fire is set to become president in Senegal. Internet outage, $1 billion needed for new cable repairs to take 8 weeks. Minister get matching orders on student loan scheme and others. The big story, banditry, Sheikh Gumi has questions to answer, federal government declares. Security agencies invite him. Army hands over 131 school children to Governor Sani. 6 pupils hospitalized. Insists no ransom was paid to bandits. Bandits kill another 9 abductees in Niger. NSA alerts Interpol on escape Binance executive. Editors deplore rising insecurity, journalist detention. CBN begins forex sales to BDCs, fixes 15% selling, 1.5% selling ban. You can find details on page 18, and that's all the news on Leadership newspaper.
On the blueprint, we have traffickers using fake jobs to lure Nigerians abroad. Night theft, NIPTEP warning, and you can find more detail on that on page 14. And this takes my mind back to that story we saw in the Guardian newspaper, where a number of Nigerians actually been exploited. Not just Nigerians, but especially African nations, those in West Africa and all of that, actually being lured to get jobs that are not really legit. And then before you realize that you're already hooked, you cannot get out of the hook, and then a number of things need to be done. So here we're seeing that this is a report coming from NITEP concerning that, and we hope that we'll have interrogations, and then before you actually go there, you need to properly check whatever job is it you actually go, so you don't get carried away because you want to Japan, leave Nigeria, and then eventually you go and meet something more deeper than you can actually get out of. So we hope Nigerians will be smarter, wiser, and actually follow the right channel, so you can actually know what to do just in case you get being, into the bad hands. You can actually get yourself back to the country.
I just had a friend who recounted his ordeal, and this was a few years back, concerning a fake job that really looked legit at that time. And I don't want to say he was lucky, he was intelligent enough to follow certain things and ask certain questions. It really looked so real. It was very, very real. There was nothing at that time that you would say this was a fake opportunity, if not for the little things that didn't add up for him. And then this was years ago. We're not talking about now. And I believe that now there will be more of that out there, because the Japan syndrome is more now than before. Now you are more vulnerable. Now people are more, what's the word? They are more desperate to live. And you can fall into the hands of these people. And let's not forget that recently we talked about black market organ harvesting.
Sure.
If you go and fall in the wrong hands, nobody will know. Nobody will know. because you have gone, and even if somebody will know, the worst have happened to you. So now more than ever, this thing needs you to be intelligent and know some little tiny I don't think he was lucky. I believe he was intelligent. He did his homework. He wasn't just desperate to just grab whatever opportunity and just move out there. You should also do the same. As important as it is to find greener pasture, just be careful so you don't go and end up eating stones and all of that eventually. So just do your homework. Don't be that desperate to just fall into the wrong hands, because we can't sit down here and tell you don't leave the country. We will not. We're not advocating for that. Not that we are advocating for people to leave either way, but just do your work. Do your homework so you don't fall into the wrong hand, because your kidney might end up on the black market.
Not only the kidney, so many organs can be
so
missing.
many organs.
There are people who are in need of a heart transplant and all of that.
Exactly.
They can actually use that. So let's just be careful as much as we can. Still on Blueprint newspaper, RMRDC Tech Complex industrializing for economic prosperity. More detail found in the paper. CBN give BTCs $10,000 each to sell at 1,269. So that is to say their interest is 1.5%. Now on sport here, Nigeria versus Mali. You can find more detail of that in the paper. And on the students that were being rescued from the kidnappers, we see here our adopters fed us with bread and akara, never molested us. Now, the writer here, Army presented 131 to Governor Sani. 6 hospitalized, teacher dies. Federal government saying no ransom paid. ACF hails the return. You can find that on page 6. And no wonder people say, no wonder the kids were just looking like they were just playing and all of that. But it looks more like somebody somewhere just wanted to use these kids to send a message or whatever it is. I really cannot wrap my head around it, but there's more to this, and I hope that the federal government will not just leave it at the fact that, okay, yes, we have this student back, but in the first place, why were they being abducted and being kept somewhere for those 18 days? I think the federal government and the state government need answers to this. We're seeing that some people were being killed in Niger State, so you might not be lucky regardless of what the reason is. I just hope that the person, all the people that are behind this, will be brought to book soon.
I mean, Sally, I can remember that one of our major concern here was that these children would be hungry, starved, malnourished, and all of that. But I mean, bread and akara, it means someone was cooking for these children every day, because it's akara. You have to make it every day. If not, it's bad the next day. So I'm happy that these children were fed. I mean, it's good, because that was one of the questions. I was like, these people can't survive if 18 days. If they don't eat for a week, some of them will die, because these are children. And then we can see that they were being fed. So it is a good thing. And then the more we're seeing the story, the more it feels, I mean, it's fishy somehow that it means the abductors really plan to feed these children, because feeding 137 children is a good number. And every day for 18 days, bread and akara. I mean, it's not good food, but it's not bad at the same time. So they were prepared for them, definitely premeditated on a lot of level. And then, but it's good that they are back to safety either way. And we can just speculate, and we just hope that what we're thinking is not true. And above all, we don't want to see any more of this.
Of course, very true, Rachel. And here we have another story still on the Blueprint newspaper. Editors urge federal government and state to step up on security. And the issue that happened in Senegal, ruling party candidate by others accept defeat. Congratulate the 42-year-old fire. You can find more detail of that inside the paper. Downside of the paper, Apabio seek IPU's voice in ending Gaza-Israeli conflict. Debt service fund rises to 7.8 trillion naira in 2023. And still we're having the issue of the Hajj fair and all that the president is saying concerning that. You can read more detail of that in the paper. We have 2 picture stories. Do well to grab the paper and read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On the Daily Times, no ransom paid for release of kidnapped Kuriga school children, coming from the federal government. Says Sheikh Gumi not above the law. Experts differ on rates tightening as NPC meet. Federal government Interpol launched widespread manhunt for Binance director Anjarwalla, detains personnel responsible for his custody. Second Niger bridge, federal government saves 300 billion naira from new design. Edo CJ reviews panel probing Shaibu replaces 2 members. Tinubu approves renewed Hope Infrastructure Development Fund. FEC OK's restructuring of 110 billion naira Nigerian Youth Investment Fund. More details can be found on page 2. And then we have a picture story. This is a cross-section of the Krika school children kidnapped by government and rescued in Zamfara State after spending 16 days in captivity at the Sir Kashim Ibrahim house in Kaduna. This was yesterday, and that's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
On Daily Sun newspaper, PDP tackles OT over repeal of governor's deputy pension law. More detail found on page 28. Well, it is a state. He is the governor. He has the right to actually make certain decisions. He has the backing of his house. So you can look more of that inside the paper. Federal government goes stop on Gumi amid death of school staff. Invites shake over school kids abduction and bandits activities. 6 students hospitalized. Governor Sani receives 131. More detail on page 5 and 6. Herdsmen kills 6 farmers in Nasarawa community. The sad story. We hope something will be done as well. And we have NAF strikes more terrorist hideouts in Lake Chad and kill others. Lassa fever killed 23 in Ebonyi State. Kwara record 1,869 TB cases in 2023, and we hope that the number will go down. With the awareness that has been made, free medical checkup and all of that, we hope that people will take advantage of that. And also the issue of Lassa fever, please try and keep your food safe, especially now that weather is dry. We have rodents coming out from the hideouts. Please, let's do what we can do and also watch out what we buy as well to consume. Still on Daily Sun newspaper, Israel agrees prisoner exchange with Hamas. UN Security Council resolution calls for ceasefire in Gaza. US abstained from voting. More detail on page 27. We have we have the story down here. NGE asks government to fix insecurity, demands release of abducted editor. More detail on page 8. And we have a picture story here. You can grab the paper, read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On this day, the big story, ONSA security agencies working with Interpol to apprehend fleeing Binance executive. Officers responsible for his custody arrested. FIRS files tax evasion charges against cryptocurrency company. Says Binance failed to register operations, collect, remit various taxes to Federation. We are collaborating with Nigerian authorities to quickly resolve issue, company declares. My husband treated well, seemed comfortable, Binance executive White told UK newspaper. At the top of the paper, CBN approved fresh FX allocation to BDCs at lower rate, slashes volume to $10,000 at 1,251 naira to a dollar. PEC sale to end user at not more than 1.5% above purchase price. NACCIMA hails Apex Bank for clearing FX backlog, urges urgent step to address TAMET requests others by businesses. You can find details on the front page and continue on page 10. Security agents raid PDD's properties in LA, Miami in alleged sex trafficking case. You can find details on page 27. Airbus Wright Aviation Minister pledges to work with Nigeria to boost air transport. Coming from the federal government, no ransom paid for release of Kaduna school children. Says Gumi not above law, can be reprimanded if found wanting. Army hands over 137 rescued kids to Sani. Governor regrets death of teacher in captivity. and picture story showing the children that were just released, freed from den of bandits. And that's all the news on this day newspaper.
Well, before we continue further, we'd like to take a break. Quite a lot to chew from the international scene and even down locally here at home. We're seeing that the president or the federal government is insisting no ransom was paid for the over 137 students that were being rescued, where we're seeing that presently 131 actually with the government, and then 6 are actually hospitalized, definitely because of the trauma and all of that. And also we're seeing that the election in Senegal, the issue of ceasefire in Gaza and Israeli, so quite a lot to actually chew. When we come back, we will continue with the paper review. Please stay tuned with us.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zuma Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, it's still the Dailies. We were looking at quite a number of stories before we went on the break. We've seen that the federal government is actually calling in Sheikh Gumi for questioning concerning some of the utterances he has been making concerning kidnapping, and also we're seeing that CBN is giving $10,000 to the bureau de change operators, where they can only make an interest of 1.5%. So we have quite a lot to see. How would this affect even the landing price of petrol in the country and all of that? So I think a number of people are looking forward to seeing that maybe, hopefully, the price of petrol will go down drastically and other products as well. I'm Stella Elisha. I still have Rachel Tanzer with me. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, Stella.
All right, please do remember to drop your comment, your views. We are interested in what you have to say concerning any other story apart from the ones we have listed this morning. And let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. And on electricity assets, vandalism of 170 power towers cost 12.8 billion naira, threatens $7 billion loan. Now here we're seeing that vandalization of electricity transmission line between January 2022 and March 2024. Now here we have 117 transmission towers have been vandalized in 26 months. TCN have spent about 110 million naira to fix each of these towers. Poor welding capacity grill collapse keeps supplying below 4,500 megawatts. TCN have completed about 105 projects between 2015 and 2020. Now, over $7 billion has been borrowed to fix this transmission infrastructure. And we see that we keep losing, yet we are not even enjoying the electricity. And I think the government needs to do something, have a strict law, have an act where we can talk about those who are out to actually vandalize some of these towers and properties. And they're actually, you know, costing the government quite a lot. So you can read more detail of that story on page 6. 6 died, 30 injured in Plateau communal clashes. More detail found on page 29. We saw that some youth took advantage of that, and that happened between the Tarok and other people down around the Kanam local government area of Plateau State. So you can read more detail of that story on page 29. No ransom paid for the 137 Kaduna pupils, says federal government. Nigeria unveils $200 million global donor initiative to boost SMEs. Lagos arraigned 2 medical doctors for alleged involuntary manslaughter. Detail found in the paper. Trade unionists demand removal of Ajero Abure from LP. More detail on page 9. And also we still have the Benin's expert flay executive escape as federal government files tax evasion charges. Another story here, that 3.7 trillion naira budget pardoning scandal at the National Assembly, an editorial on page 12. Federal government to liberalize metering, allow consumers to buy directly from approved vendors. More detail found inside the paper. Federal government to liberalize metering, allow customers to buy directly from approved vendors. You can find detail on page 15, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, renewed hope infrastructure fund to enable to revamp airport terminals, ports, and others. Zakat distribution debt toll hit 8 in Bauchi stampede. Federal government confirms abscondment of Binance executive, files tax evasion charges. The big story, Naira appreciation crashes PMS ex-depot prices. NGX trading closes negatively as investors anticipate outcome of MPC meeting. 20 aspirants express interest in Ondo APC PDP governorship tickets. Kuriga kidnapping, 1 dead as 6 students hospitalized. You can find details on page 13. Picture story showing CEOs and directors of the Tony Elumelu Foundation, where we can have Tony himself, his wife, and Oliver and his daughter. And that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
On the Matrix newspaper, Nigeria seeks joint regional protection of undersea cables. More detail found in the paper. Tinubu approved Renew Hope Fund to address infrastructure deficit. Fund will invest in critical national projects to promote growth, create employment opportunities. More detail found in the paper. Accusation, counter-accusation, trade escape of Benin's official. Ex-DSS top shot fault the NSA for keeping Benin's officials, says they are not security agency. NSA should have transferred them to the EFCC custody, placed them on watch list. Alleges compromised convenience with security agency. NSA arrest suspect in connection with Ajiwala escape. You can find more detail inside the paper. You are not above the law. Federal government rules invite controversial Islamic cleric Sheikh Gumi for interrogation. We didn't pay ransom to rescue Kuriga school children release, coming from the federal government. NCC files criminal charges against MTN, others over copyright infringement. Federal government charges bloggers to court over accusing Fashola of writing PEPC's judgment. More found inside the paper. Wike renew hostility against Fubara, says he showed his true color after we won election for him. CBN warned Bureau de Change operators against selling forex above 1,269 to a dollar, threatening to sanction errant operators. More detail found in the paper. We still have the picture story showing free at last students, and that's all on the Matrix newspaper.
On Daily Independent, Edo Chief George reviews Shaibu's impeachment probe panel. Editors express concern over growing insecurity across country, urge military to speak out on abduction of editor. The big story on the paper, federal government denies paying ransom to free 137 Kaduna school children, says security agencies questioning Gumi on bandits' activities. Tinubu okays infrastructure fund to fast-track project development. FEC approves 2% quota investment fund for youth. Zungeru Dam, CLO asks Tinubu to direct payment of 1.1 trillion naira to Samburu community. Zulum names 168 104 chairmen, board members of agencies and commissions. Details can be found on page 7. TED Fund doles out 23 billion naira for research funding across Nigeria. No hiding place for fleeing Binance regional manager, says the federal government. Confirms escape, says Interpol working to rearrest suspect. We have arrested personnel responsible for his custody. Senegal on the verge of electing its youngest president ever. Details can be found on page 6, and that's all the news on Daily Independent.
On Business Day newspaper, Nigerians' human capital at risk as bandits run riot. And debunking economic myth, inflation is not always harmful. So you want to know more? You can turn to page 16 and 17 to read more detail of what inflation is and its effects as well to the nation. Money supply growth slows on CBN liquidity squeeze. More inside the paper. Tax and spend and tax, shaping in Nigerians' fiscal future. Tax and spend and tax, shaping in Nigerians' fiscal future. You can find that on the back page of the paper. We still have a picture story here showing us Dangote and the governor of Kano State while they were there, sharing food in Kano State for the vulnerable and the hungry there. And that's all on Business Day newspaper.
On Sporting Sun, the big story, Osimhen's 16th highest paid player in Europe. Chelsea, Arsenal, PSG ought to offer 90 million for Nigerian. You can find details on page 6. Bayern Munich interested in 120 million euros Fernandes. You can find details on the back page. Vinicius Jr. hails Kyle Walker as the best defender. Kane returns to Bayern training. Mbappe is Europe's best paid footballer. You can find details inside the paper. Tottenham plans summer bid for Gallagher. You can find details inside the paper. Chelsea offers 166 million pounds Fernandes Cucurella to Real Madrid. Man City 115 charges. Premier League hearing date revealed. Details can be found on page 2. Rafinha feels press fans never 100% behind him. Paris 2024 World Drum invites Ajibade, Ashaola, Inadozi, 19 others for Bayana. Details can be found on page 6. Federal government to splash 351.9 million naira on Team Nigeria for Ghana feat. Woods McIlroy Virtual Golf League to launch January 2025. That is next year. You can find the details at the back page, and that's all the news on Sporting Sun newspaper.
Well, that's actually a great one. Thank you, Rachel, for doing this.
You're welcome, Sally.
And also thank you to our viewers, thank you our supporters for making it out and always keeping a date with us on the dailies as we take you through some of the reviews. We look forward to meeting you again tomorrow. To have a great day ahead.